Alright YouTube, welcome back. Earlier this week, Capture One released an update titled Retouching that has some of the Photoshop retouching features. So today we're just going to try it out, give my thoughts, and I'll let you guys know what I think. So overall I've got to play with this, and I think it's a very cool tool, it's very powerful, but I think it's got some drawbacks that we should all be aware of, especially as this is a tool that is, it's a tool that's would replace Photoshop for a lot of people, myself included. Personally, I know I hate the retouching process, not because it's hard, but it's just time consuming to get it done well. So these first two images we're going to play with are really just a showcase to compare and contrast. This first image, this is just a raw picture. I've done very little color adjusting, exposure, all the basic stuff. And then we're just going to come in and test out the retouching feature here, and we're going to compare this to my final product, which I did fully retouch, so we can see the difference between the two. So let's just go ahead and come in here and just do what I would do. Now, my main concern with this retouching feature is that it's missing the ability to detect what is a blemish and what is genuinely just a facial feature of a person. So, for example, just to make it clear what I mean, notice on her face that we've got, her face is pretty clean. She takes care of it pretty well. We've got, one small pimple here, a little, I guess, some of her makeup bled or just got off her face. It was a windy day. For the most part, though, this is a pretty clean image. We got what looks like maybe a mosquito bite or something here. For the most part, this is a very clean image. And if I were to retouch this and remove blemishes, I really wouldn't be doing a whole lot. So here is where I think this program really isn't quite ready yet. So even though there's not very many blimps in her skin, which is great, if I were to come in with this retouch feature, and the very first thing you do when you're doing any sort of retouching is just to get rid of any of those small things that I just pointed out, with this in Capture One, it can't quite tell the difference between that sort of thing and actual features of the skin. So if you'll notice, so what you'll see as I increase this is that it's getting rid of everything on her skin that's not perfect, right? And oddly enough, it actually didn't get rid of one of the few things I wanted it to get rid of, which that is a very, very big deal. I don't want this to get rid of natural beauty, so that's things like scars, freckles, any sort of moles, anything that's permanently going to be on somebody's skin for more than a week or so at a time. That sort of stuff I do not want to get rid of, and it's important because that's a part of who they are. So the blemishes feature here, I know what it's trying to do, but it just can't distinguish what is an actual blemish versus a freckle, which is quite literally a big piece of who she is. And especially in this case, right, I was taking headshots for her. If she took this to a casting call and showed up with a picture that looked like this, and then when I see her in person, she looks more like this, that's a big deal for something like actors, where, who they are matters. A feature like this, I couldn't accept because it's just not good. I will say if it's, the case where someone has pretty clear skin, then it's not an issue, right? No freckles, no moles, no anything like that. This feature would work great. So realistically, this is not a feature I could use on this face right here. Dark circles. Now this feature, so far, every time I've tested it out, has worked out pretty well. I've not really had any issues using it. Now I will say it almost looks like it's impacting something right here as well, which is not part of the eyes. Let's zoom in here and see what's happening. So yeah, its mask is, the feather of the mask is a little intense. But I think for the most part, this feature seems to be working pretty okay, and I would be comfortable using this at a large scale. So for here, let's just do, let's do like a smooth, I think 50% is enough, so I'm gonna pull back about to 35. All right, now let's go ahead and look at the even skin features. So What I believe these two are doing is they are doing frequency separation. So this first part is just basic light retouching, something you could do in any photo editing program realistically. And this is what I would call the important part. This is the frequency separation. So frequency separation basically works by separating your skin into two layers. The first layer is color, and the second layer is texture. So color is going to focus on things like the transitions between your skin tones, and the texture is going to focus on just the actual roughness or smoothness of it. So let's see how well this feature does it in Capture One. I'm going to start here, and I believe this is the color. And I will say, I'm pleasantly surprised. So let's take a look at an area like right here. Right, we can see we've got a little bit of reddish brownish, a little bit of pinkish brownish, and then her actual skin tones are all kind of playing around here. You can see how that we can clearly see where each tone starts, right? This is a patch, this is a patch, this is a separate patch of skin. And it smoothens out these tones so the clear distinction between the two isn't super clear, right? It's smoother, the transitions are a little bit more easier on the eyes. They just make the skin feel a little more natural. So we'll say not half bad. I want to come back in here and see how it adjusts the texture. Interesting thing I'm noticing is that this texture feature is actually adding back in some of that freckle detail. So I wonder if I crank this up and then add texture, that doesn't really work too well. So this feature is just unusable right now in its current state unless a person has no sort of natural beauty. And typically some people remove the texture. I'm not going to go crazy. I like having texture in the skin. I want enough to feel it, but not enough to really matter. Okay, and last but not least, let's go ahead and add a little bit of contouring, which I initially thought this was going to be like dodging and burning, but it does not look like that's the case at all. It looks like this is just adding shadows. Is it adding? It's not adding any. Interesting. So this is only adding shadows. Is what it looks like. It looks like this is only adding shadows. Like a literal makeup contour. Here's my issue with this feature. I think it's doing its job well. The problem is this is something I would do during the dodging and burning process. And essentially all dodging and burning is adding in highlights and darks. That's essentially all that's happening. And the reason you do so is because when you do frequency separation, you're losing a little bit of contrast in the skin, which is why I assume this contouring feature would be that. But it doesn't look like it's actually adding any highlights, which is a big deal because you're only getting half of the dodging and burning process. So you'd basically have to go in and do it manually, which probably not the biggest deal in the world to do with Capture One. You could literally just create a new layer, do one dodge layer, and then probably a burn layer as well. However, I feel like if you're going to add a feature like this, it makes sense to add both halves of it, because right now what would have to happen anyways, I could maybe use a dark circles feature. I could maybe use this dodging and burning feature. I'm not 100% sold on it. It's better than I thought, not 100% sold on it. But because the blemishes feature isn't great, it would still require me to open up Photoshop anyway to do some proper cleanups and retouching. Not to mention, this feature completely ignores stray hairs present in the image. We've got a stray hair here, we've got a stray hair here, a big stray here. I don't necessarily feel the need to adjust every little hair in an image, but if they're distracting or going the complete opposite direction of everything else, I do absolutely feel that that's important to take out. And there's not even a feature to address that at all. So here's, the Capture One retouched image. Honestly, not horrible. This isn't something I could deliver to a client. It's not ready. So For stuff like this, where you're necessarily out in the field and you can't necessarily control everything, like we had wind blowing around, we didn't have, well, I mean, I brought my own lighting, I brought my own strobe, so we had pretty decent lighting control. Not the most ideal situation though. Here is an image where I think this will excel. This is, in this picture, our model has fairly clear skin. There's not a lot of natural beauty. So let's go ahead and test it out and see how it performs in this situation. So we're just going to start by our blemishes and just identify where they are. First, we've got here a little something. That might be a little something. Maybe a little something here. For the most part, though, she's got pretty clear skin. She's done her makeup quite well, so I don't think we'll need a ton of this anyway. Let's just see what Capture One does. It doesn't do a horrible job where there's not a lot of places for it to fuck up. It's essentially where this can excel. So, and now think about it, there's one more area I wanted to check out in our original image. Let's go back there real quick. And specifically, one thing I've really noticed with this is that this will not touch anything outside of the face. Yes, predominantly when we're retouching and doing that sort of deal, we're going to be focusing on the face if we're focusing on people. However, equally as important is all the other areas of the skin. So, in this picture, we've got her face and her neck, which I actually think it does touch her neck a little bit. It does not touch her neck at all, which is kind of surprising. But down here, you'll notice that I have done some retouching in this area of the image as well. So if I just reset everything here, it literally changed nothing. Wow. That's a big deal, especially with when you have a slider like blemishes, which is literally designed to handle this sort of thing. So right here, we've got little, I'm pretty sure it's like a mosquito bite or something, but little things right here. All that sort of stuff is that you can easily just fix with a couple small clicks in Photoshop. And they make a huge difference in just making sure that a person looks their best, right? But you're just trying to make sure a person looks their best when you're doing retouching. And it doesn't look like Capture One is quite able to do that just yet. So, here's the overall verdict. I think it's decent for what it's trying to do. I think it is a great starting point, especially if you're in situations where super detailed and super high quality retouches isn't important. I think this tool is great and is absolutely worth including in all of your pictures. I think you just need to be careful, particularly with people with freckles or any other sort of natural beauty, that you're not losing detail in those areas. It's also important to know that you do not currently have the ability to get rid of any straight hairs or do any sort of eye adjustments, and it will not touch any visible skin outside of the face. And all those are pretty big deal breakers that you should consider before using Capture One. So overall, I think it's cool. Give it a couple years, and then I think it'll be great. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.